The galaxy was alive with sound, the chatter of trade channels, the hum of fleet communications, the deep pulse of political broadcasts, and then, all at once, everything stopped. The silence hit first. Ships in mid-battle froze as their weapon systems blinked into standby. Diplomats speaking at grand assemblies found their microphones dead. News anchors froze mid-sentence, their words replaced by static. Then, through every screen, every comm channel, every warship's bridge speakers, a single voice came. It was human.com. Cold, unmistakable. "Since you chose war," the voice said, every word slow and measured, "prepare for the consequences." There was no music, no background noise, no trace of emotion, just a voice that seemed to pierce straight into the spine in a crowded alien marketplace on the Arden Prime homeworld. Merchants dropped their goods and stared at the sky screens. On the bridge of the Zarth Dominion's flagship, Admiral Threx felt his mandibles tremble. His comm officers checked their systems, desperately trying to locate the origin, but every scan returned the same result: no source found. In the silent halls of the Varixi Senate, leaders who had laughed at Earth's weakness just months ago now sat, frozen in their seats and far away. In the cold void between stars, ships of the great Turvak Empire halted mid-jump. The voice had found them even in hyperspace. The transmission ended as suddenly as it had begun. No static, no signature, no trace. Only silence remained, and fear. For decades, Earth had been quiet. To quiet it had once been a loud, defiant voice in the Galactic Council, proud, independent, and unwilling to bow to alien empires. But 27 years ago, without warning, humanity had withdrawn from galactic politics. Its fleets vanished from trade routes. Its diplomats stopped attending council sessions. Even its colonies went dark to the rest of the galaxy. It was a mystery, and then slowly a joke. The dominant empires began circling, certain Earth had fallen into weakness. Small trade agreements became unfair treaties. Unfair treaties became demands. Demands became blockades. Soon, war fleets gathered along the Sol Sector's border. The message had been clear: submit, or be conquered. In the vast marble chamber of the Carrick's High Council, Overseer Zarin spoke with cold satisfaction. The humans are fractured, their fleets are outdated, colonies will fall in a matter of weeks. The Sol Sector will be hours by cycle's end. But in a shadowed corner of the chamber, a junior diplomat from a minor star nation whispered to his aide, "Why haven't they fought back yet?" Across the galaxy, hidden in secure stations and intelligence hubs, small pieces of a much larger puzzle were starting to form, whispers in the underground. Networks claimed Earth had been preparing during its silence. Merchant ship captain recalled passing near Jupiter years ago and seeing something vast, a structure the size of a small moon. Before being forced to alter course by an automated defense drone, an old smuggler swore that he had seen a fleet of black, unmarked warships slipping into deep space, heading far beyond mapped territory. But most in power laughed these off as stories. After all, humans had always been good at telling stories, until now. The transmission spread panic faster than any virus in the Zarth Dominion War Council. Senior generals argued over whether to pull their fleets back or accelerate their invasion. "This is psychological warfare," spat General Tarlix. "A bluff." "They can't possibly then explain," interrupted Admiral Threx, "how the voice reached my flagship while we were in hyperspace jump. No known technology can broadcast into hyperspace, except apparently theirs." The Varan Confederacy, Prime Spokeswoman Arsha, convened an emergency meeting. "We need to determine if Earth has allies," she said. "No civilization in isolation could create a transmission of this scale. Not in secret." But deep inside, she feared the truth. Perhaps they had done it alone. Under the blue skies of a calm, unsuspecting world, life seemed normal. Cities bustled. Cargo drones crossed the skies. Oceans shimmered in the summer sun, but beneath the surface, far beneath humanity, had been working. In an underground facility, buried under the Siberian tundra, technicians sat at massive consoles, their screens glowing with cryptic data. Streams. In the center of the room stood a man in a dark coat, hands clasped behind his back. His face was hidden in shadow. The room was silent until one of the technicians looked up and said, "Broadcast confirmed, sir." Every target received it. The man did not smile. He only nodded once. "Good. Begin phase 2. Somewhere else, deep in the Pacific, an automated facility awoke from decades of hibernation. Massive gates opened beneath the waves, and the shadows of colossal shapes began to rise from the darkness and in lunar orbit. A hidden shipyard lit up for the first time in 20 years, the day after the broadcast. Intelligence reports flooded into alien high councils on Clivar Station. A fleet convoy bound for the Soul Border vanished without a trace. On the desert moon of Rack 7, a weapons depot exploded under mysterious circumstances. And on the Zarth Dominion's primary shipyard, a single encrypted message appeared on every terminal. "This is just the beginning." Theories ran wild. Some claimed humanity had developed weapons the galaxy had never seen. Others believed they had allied with another, more dangerous power. But the most terrifying idea, the one no one wanted to say aloud, was that Earth had never been weak at all. The shadowy man in the Siberian facility walked down a long, dim hallway. His boots echoed against the metal floor. At the end of the hall was a massive steel door. He placed his hand on a biometric scanner. With a hiss, the door opened, revealing a cavernous chamber filled with rows of sleek black ships there, hulls glinting under the cold light. In the center of the room, a massive screen displayed 2 words: Project Dawn, Acid Ive. I didn't know. The man looked at it for a long moment, then spoke quietly to himself. They wanted war. We'll give them one, though. Never forget. The camera would fade to black here, leaving the audience with questions, theories, and the irresistible need to click part 2. Space is never truly silent. Ships hum, stars burn, and the endless void carries the faint whispers of distant signals. But tonight, over the Soul Sector, the void itself seemed to listen. 3 alien scout ships drifted just outside the mapped edge of Earth's space. Their captains had been ordered to watch for any sign of human fleet movement. They saw nothing. Until the shadows moved. At first they thought it was an asteroid shifting in the dark. Then the asteroid unfolded, revealing sleek black armor, razor-thin edges, and a hull that drank the starlight. The lead alien captain, a veteran of 2 border wars, felt the quills on his neck stand up. Unidentified ship. State your designation, he ordered. The shadow ship didn't respond. It simply glided toward them. No engine flares, no visible weapons. The alien captain ordered his gunners to target it. But before they could fire, their systems went dead. Every weapon, every engine, every light. The last thing they heard before their comms went dark was that same human voice from the broadcast. "You shouldn't have come here. Their ships were never seen again." The galaxy was still reeling from the broadcast when reports of disappearances began. Small fleets sent to observe Earth vanished without a trace. Border patrols stopped returning messages at the Varan confederacies. War ministry. Panic was turning into something worse. Uncertainty. "We don't know what they have," admitted Minister Dalth. "Our scans show no movement in their system, yet entire fleets vanish. It's as if their ships don't exist on sensors at all." Across the chamber, Admiral Sariv, a grizzled veteran, slammed her hand on the table. "That's because you're looking in the wrong place. The humans aren't defending their system. They're already inside ours." Deep beneath the surface of the Siberian facility, the man in the dark coat stood before a massive tactical display. Holographic star maps showed red dots, alien fleets, outposts, and supply lines blinking in and out as they were destroyed. Project Dawn was not a single weapon. It was a program, a decades-long plan to rebuild Earth's fleets in secret. Using designs the galaxy had never seen, the black ships that now haunted alien borders were specters, stealth warships, capable of erasing themselves from every known detection system. They could appear and disappear at will. They could slip through a fleet without being seen. The man turned to his staff. "How many specters are operational?" 17, a woman replied. Another 12 will be ready within the week. Nodded. Good. Deploy them to key border points. Make sure they leave witnesses this time. Far from Seoul, a Zarth's Dominion patrol ship picked up a faint signal distress beacons from a trade convoy. They found only wreckage. Among the drifting cargo containers was a single pod with one survivor, a Zarth merchant trembling in shock. His reports spread quickly through Dominion space. They came out of nowhere. No engine heat, no sensor signature. They boarded without opening the hull. We didn't even know they were there until the captain fell to the floor with a blade through him. And then they spoke. They said. The merchant's voice cracked. They said, "This is mercy. Next time there will be none." In the Galactic Council chamber, the atmosphere was chaos. Smaller nations demanded answers from the great empires. While the empires blamed each other, but a few older species, long silent during the crisis, began to speak in hushed tones. The Eldari, a species so ancient they had records from humanity's earliest space days, issued a warning. If the humans are truly awake, then war will not go as you expect. They were not silent because they were weak. They were silent because they were preparing. Most dismissed this as fear-mongering, but in private. Fleets began quietly withdrawing from soul space. Project Dawn's second phase began. Targeted strikes on alien, military infrastructure on the icy moon of Drevis 4. A weapons manufacturing hub went dark in less than 3 minutes. In the Nabari Belt, a fleet yard the size of a small city was found abandoned, its workers missing, its defense systems untouched. And on the Carrick's homeworld itself, a hologram appeared in the skies over the capital. The war you wanted has begun. Crowds screamed in terror. Security forces fired at the hologram as if it could be destroyed. The man in the coat entered a secure chamber. Before him stood a massive vertical cylinder, humming with hidden power. Its surface was etched with thousands of microscopic patterns, the kind no alien could decipher. A voice came over his earpiece. "Sir, the Council is convening an emergency war summit." "Let them," he said quietly. "By the time they agree on anything, Phase 3 will have already begun." He placed his hand on the cylinder. Lights rippled across its surface. Somewhere, in deep space far from Earth, an entire alien fleet received a signal, one they couldn't block, jam, or trace. It contained only coordinates. And a countdown, .00:11:59 fade to black. The countdown reached 0, in the black void of the Drenner expanse. 117 alien warships waited at the coordinates they had received. Their orders from the Carrick's High Command were simple. Ambush the human. Fleet Admiral Vareth stood on the bridge of his flagship, confident. "This is where they'll appear. My spies confirmed the coordinates came from their own encrypted systems. We've trapped them in their own snare." The crew's tension eased. Weapons were hot, shields at full strength. Every ship's targeting. A ray was locked on the empty patch of space ahead. The sensors picked up a faint shimmer. "Here they come," shouted a gunner. But the shimmer didn't resolve into a fleet. It resolved into debris, thousands of pieces of broken hull plating. Scorched engines, shattered weapons. It was the Carrick's own forward fleet, already destroyed, drifting toward them like a floating graveyard before Admiral Vareth could issue a command. Every light on his ship went out. In the darkness, his comms came alive with the human voice, "You shouldn't have answered." And then, nothing but screams and static. The destruction of the Drenner Expanse fleet sent shockwaves through the galaxy for the first time. It wasn't just border patrols or scouting parties being hit. This was a full, prepared war fleet. And it had been annihilated before the battle even began. In the Varan Confederacy's war ministry, ministers demanded explanations. Admiral Sarivi slammed down a datapad showing the last known readings. This wasn't sabotage. This wasn't infiltration. They destroyed our fleet before it even saw combat. Do you understand what that means? But in the shadows of the chamber, an older intelligence officer muttered, "It means they're inside our networks." They knew every ship, every route, every plan. In the Siberian Command Center, the man in the dark coat reviewed the operations. Data. Around him, holographic maps shifted, showing alien territories. The Spectre ships weren't the only weapon in Project Dawn's arsenal. There were ghost satellites now drifting in enemy space, intercepting communications and feeding false orders to alien fleets. It wasn't just about destroying ships. It was about dismantling trust. Every alien commander now had to wonder, are my orders real? Or is humanity feeding me a trap? The Galactic Council chamber was filled to capacity. Leaders from dozens of empires shouted accusations. Smaller nations begged for peace talks. Overseer Zareen of the Carix Empire, furious and humiliated, demanded a united invasion of Sol. Every day we delay, they grow stronger, Zareen roared. We must hit them with overwhelming force before their shadow fleets cripple us all. But the Eldari elder rose slowly, her voice calm. You still do not understand. They are not building strength. They already have it. You are merely seeing what they prepared long ago. The chamber erupted into chaos, despite warnings. The Carix and Zarth empires launched Operation Final Spear, a joint armada of nearly 600 warships. The largest force ever assembled for a single assault on Sol. They moved in 3 prongs. One fleet through the Urt Gate, one through the Mars Relay, and one directly toward Earth's orbital plane. The plan was to overwhelm any human defense by sheer numbers. What they didn't know was that the Urt Gate had been rewritten. As the first prong entered the gate, their ships emerged not in Sol space, but in a dead star system on the edge of the galaxy. Their automated human defense platforms waited, armed with weapons that tore ships apart at the molecular level. The Mars Relay fleet never made it out. As they activated the relay, Human AI, buried in the relay's core for 20 years, initiated a lock and detonated the entire system, racing the fleet in a single expanding sphere of white light. Only the direct approach toward Earth succeeded in arriving, and what they saw froze them in place. Orbiting Earth was not the fragile defense grid the aliens expected. Instead, 12 massive titans drifted in formation, ships larger than any dreadnought the galaxy had ever seen. Each bore the same hull pattern, black surface etched with glowing white lines, like constellations burning in the dark. As the alien fleet approached, the titans slowly turned, their weapon arrays locking on the invaders. The lead alien captain sent a desperate message to the fleet. All ships, evasive, but before he could finish, one of the titans fired. A single beam of white light lanced through space, and an entire alien cruiser simply ceased to exist in the command center. The man in the coat watched the battle unfold on the holographic display. A junior officer turned to him. Sir, the enemy fleet is breaking. Should we pursue? He shook his head slowly. Not yet. Let them run. Let them tell the galaxy what they saw. On the alien flagship, Admiral Vareth's surviving crew stared in shock at the Titan warships, their sensors, unable to identify the weapon that had just erased their lead cruiser. Retreat, Vareth whispered. We're not ready for this. The fleet fled into the dark, carrying with them the first true sight of humanity's wrath. Fade to black. The alien fleet's retreat from Earth was supposed to be a temporary withdrawal, a regrouping. It became something far worse. Every ship carried survivors who had seen the Titans. They spoke of warships the size of cities, of weapons that didn't just destroy, but erased. They spoke of the human voice, calm, cold, and promising consequences. By the time the fleet limped back into Allied space, their stories had already spread faster than any official report. And fear had an ugly side. It made allies turn on each other in the capital of the Zarth Dominion. A heated meeting erupted in the War Council. This is your fault, General Kern hissed at the Carix delegation. You led us into this war. Before knowing their strength, you wasted our fleets. The Carix overseer slammed his clawed hand on the table. We still outnumber them 10-1. We simply need a better strategy. The Varan ambassador's voice cut through the noise. No, you need an exit, and fast. The room went silent. The word exit was not something anyone dared say aloud. Somewhere far from this political brawl, in a quiet station on the edge of Eldari space, a secret message was sent to Earth. The content was simple. We are not your enemy. We want peace. The retreat from Seoul marked the first visible crack in the united front. Against humanity, the pro-war faction led by the Carrick's overseer and several hawkish Zarth generals insisted humanity could still be beaten if the alliance pooled its full military might. The peace faction, made up of smaller empires, independent systems, and a few ancient species, argued that fighting Earth was suicide. They proposed opening quiet back channels to negotiate in the Siberian Command Center. The man in the dark coat studied intercepted council transmissions. "They're starting to split," his intelligence chief said. "Good," he replied. "Make sure they split faster." Project Dawn's next phase wasn't about firing weapons. It was about words. Human operatives began inserting false communications into alien networks, messages suggesting some factions had already signed secret treaties with Earth, leaked plans showing that certain allies intended to betray the others mid-battle, fabricated reports of human fleets being spared. When passing through some territories, the seeds of doubt spread like wildfire. Then came the event that shattered the alliance on the neutral trade world of Rhinaxes, the Zarth dominions. Military liaison was found dead, killed in a precision strike no local security could explain. The Carricks accused the Varens accused the Carricks. The smaller nations began to panic. Convinced a shadow war had begun inside the alliance, the truth was far simpler and far more dangerous. In a dimly lit human outpost hidden on an asteroid, a Spectre operative reported in, "Target eliminated, ordered." Meanwhile, the Eldari Council gathered in secret. The eldest among them spoke. "This is exactly what they want. Division, confusion, distrust. And when we are weakest, they will strike." One of the younger Eldari asked the question none of them wanted to hear. "What if? They've already decided we all must fall." The elder did not answer. With the alliance fracturing, some individual fleets took matters into their own hands. The Turvak Raiders, a mercenary armada allied to the Carricks, launched an unsanctioned attack on a human colony in the Gliese system. They expected an easy raid. What they got was a massacre. Human defense drones, silent, fast, and impossibly precise, shredded the raiders in minutes. The last surviving Turvak ship sent a final transmission. They knew we were coming. They were waiting for us. On Earth, the man in the coat stood on a balcony, overlooking the massive underground shipyard. The Black Titans loomed. In the distance, their hulls glowing faintly with starlight-like patterns, an aide approached. "Sir, the Alliance is collapsing faster than we projected. Some factions are already pulling fleets from the front." He nodded. "Good. Let them retreat. And when the ones who still want war finally come for us," he turned, looking straight at the camera, "we'll show them why we were silent for 27 years. The pro-war faction was out of time. The alliance was breaking apart. Fleets were pulling back. Political leaders were whispering of surrender. And the Carrick's overseer refused to watch his empire lose face. Enough waiting," Zarin snarled in the war chamber. "If Earth will not bow, we will burn their homeworld to ash." The few remaining hawkish allies nodded grimly. They would send their entire remaining force alast, all-or-nothing armada, to crush humanity before the peace faction could stop them. Within hours, more than 800 warships began to gather at the staging point in the Juraxis. Cluster, carriers, dreadnoughts, siege platforms. They came armed with planet-killer weapons and enough firepower to erase entire star systems. But as the fleet prepared to jump to Seoul, something happened no alien commander had ever seen before. One by one, their long-range sensors went dark. Navigation arrays failed. Then, their own star maps began to change. A Carrick's fleet captain stared in disbelief as the Juraxis stars on her display shifted and vanished. "Admiral," her sensor officer whispered, "we're not in Juraxis anymore." When the fleet attempted its jump toward Earth, emerged not in soul space, but in their own territory near the Carrick's outer colonies. It took them less than a minute to realize the horrifying truth. Humanity had rerouted the entire invasion, Starmada into friendly space, and humanity wasn't defending. Earth, they were already here. Hundreds of Spectre ships appeared out of nowhere, their black holes flickering in and out of sensor range. Then the Titans arrived not in orbit over Earth, but in orbit over Carrick's Prime. For centuries, the Carricks had ruled half a dozen systems with an iron claw. Their capital world was thought untouchable, protected by the largest defense grid in the quadrant. It fell in less than an hour. Overseer Zarin watched from the safety of his flagship as human weapons ripped through his orbital defense stations. Entire squadrons vanished in silent flashes of white light. "This can't be possible," he muttered. "They shouldn't even know where an aide cut him off," trembling. "Sir, they're broadcasting." The main view screen lit up with the face of a human officer, the man in the dark coat. "Overseer Zarin," the voice said calmly. "You wanted war. You brought it to our doorstep. We are simply returning the courtesy." Then the transmission ended, replaced by live feeds of human forces landing on Carrick's soil. News of the Carrick's invasion tore through the galaxy. The peace faction saw this as proof that continuing the war was suicide. Several smaller empires broke formal ties with the Carricks immediately. But the Hawks, though still clinging to the idea of victory, demanded retaliation, even if it meant pulling fleets from their own borders. That decision would prove fatal. Back in the Siberian Command Center, the man in the coat reviewed the incoming reports. Carrick's Prime secured, an aide said. Civilian casualties, minimal. We've seized their central data cores. Fleet losses, 0. The man's eyes narrowed. Begin Phase 4. Target the Zarth Dominion next. Without warning, the Zarth homeworld awoke to find their own shipyards under attack. Human forces didn't just destroy the yards, they hijacked them. Within hours, human-controlled drones were building warships using Zarth technology. But with Earth's lethal upgrades, the Dominion's admirals were stunned. It was one thing to lose a battle. It was another to watch the enemy use your own weapons against you. In a darkened council chamber somewhere in Eldari space, the ancient elder stared into a holographic projection of Sol. Her aide spoke nervously. "If they can do this to the Carricks and the Zarth, what chance does anyone have?" The elder didn't look away from the map. "The war is already over. The rest of the galaxy just hasn't accepted it yet." Fade to black, the perfect cliffhanger for Part 6. Where the remaining hawkish alien leaders launch a desperate counterstrike, only to realize humanity has prepared one final, devastating revelation. The war was collapsing faster than the Hawks had imagined. Carrick's Prime had fallen. Zarth's shipyards were gone. The peace faction was already drafting surrender terms. But the remaining pro-war leaders weren't ready to accept defeat. In a hidden fortress station, orbiting the dying star Voltrax 6, the last hawkish admirals gathered in secret. There were no speeches, no politics. Just one brutal truth from Admiral Koresh of the Zarth Dominion. If we lose this war, our empires will never recover. Humanity will dictate the galaxy's future. And we will be the ones remembered for failing to stop them. The plan they drafted in that room would be the most reckless gamble in galactic history. They called it Operation Ashfall, a coordinated strike to obliterate Earth's homeworld in a single, overwhelming blow. The weapon was not a fleet. It was a star killer. For centuries, the Carricks had hidden a forbidden weapon in deep storage, a device capable of destabilizing a star's core, forcing it into supernova. Even the threat of using it was enough to keep most wars conventional. Now it was being armed and aimed at Sol. The admirals knew it would take days to reach position. They didn't care. If they could destroy Earth itself, it wouldn't matter. How many fleets they lost? Humanity would be crippled forever. They believed the humans didn't know. They were wrong. Deep beneath the Siberian tundra, the man in the dark coat listened as an intelligence officer read the latest report. The Carricks and Zarth remnants have combined forces. They've deployed a Class Omega stellar destabilizer. Estimated arrival in Sol orbit, 96 hours. There was no panic in the man's eyes. Only calculation. "Contact the Helios teams," he said. "Tell them it's time." The Helios Protocol had been humanity's most closely guarded secret. Even within Project Dawn, it wasn't a weapon meant for fleets or planets. It was a weapon meant for stars. Instead of destroying, it could shield a star's core from external manipulation, locking it in a stable state even under extreme assault. Technology had never been tested in real combat, and to deploy it, they'd need to send a team directly into the heart of Sol's Corona, while the peace faction attempted last-minute negotiations. Human fleets launched a diversionary offensive into Carrick's space, drawing attention away from Sol. The Spectres were dispatched to intercept the Starkiller convoy, not to destroy it, but to delay it. Every hour counted. Meanwhile, the Helios team's specialized crews aboard heavily shielded coronal ships began their descent into Sol's blazing outer layers. Carrying the device that could save the system, the alien admirals hadn't been fooled halfway to their target. The Helios teams were intercepted by a Zarth strike group hidden inside a hollowed asteroid. The battle was brutal, fought in the blinding glare of Sol itself. Ships on both sides melted under the sheer heat, but the humans pushed through, losing 2 coronal ships before the device was in place. With less than 20 hours to spare, the Helios array activated, and Sol's light pulsed across the system. In a sudden, blinding flare, from that moment forward, the Starkiller's weapon was useless. But humanity wasn't done. The Spectres tailing the Starkiller. Convoy finally made their move, not destroying the device, but hijacking it. Within 12 hours, the same weapon meant for Sol was reprogrammed and set on a new course. Its target, the Carrick's industrial heart world, in the Carrick's Overseer's war chamber.
Alarms screamed.
His aides shouted over one another, their voices panicked. "Sir, the device, it's been turned. New trajectory calculated. Impact in 15 hours. The Overseer froze. Who controls it now?" Her voice crackled over his cums, the same cold, calm human voice that had started it all. "We don't just return fire, we return favors." The screen fades to black, leaving the audience hanging for Part 7, where the stolen Starkiller changes the entire balance of the war. 15 hours, that was all the Carrick's Overseer had before the weapon they had built. The Starkiller reached his empire's industrial heartworld, Vorath Prime. It wasn't just a planet, it was their core. 7 shipyards, 2 trillion citizens, the beating heart of their economy, and now it was doomed. Emergency evacuation orders flooded the system. Starliners overloaded. Military fleets abandoned outer sectors to rush back to Vorath. The space lanes turned into chaos, ships colliding, people screaming over channels, navigation grids failing under the surge. In the Carrick's War Council chamber, the admirals argued over what to do. Some wanted to beg for peace. Others wanted to strike Sol again. The Overseer silenced them with one order: contact the humans. But when the message reached Earth, it wasn't answered with negotiation. It was answered with coordinates, not of Vorath Prime, but of every Carrick's fleet still active in the war. In a single sentence: withdraw from our borders within 24 hours, or Vorath burns. And the human high command had no intention of firing the Starkiller immediately. It was more useful as a blade held against the throat of an enemy who finally understood what fear felt like. In war rooms across the galaxy, alien leaders watched the situation unfold. The peace factions urged the Carricks to surrender, fearing humanity would actually use the weapon. The Hawks swore Earth was bluffing, that no species would destroy billions of civilians. They forgot something. Earth had never played by their rules. Behind the scenes, the Spectres had already infiltrated Vareth's orbital defenses. They didn't need the Starkiller to cripple the planet. They just needed the Carricks too. I believe they did. The Starkiller was still inbound. Yes. But human operatives had placed microfusion charges across Varath's planetary defense grid. Even if the Carricks tried to shoot the weapon down, their own guns would fail at the critical moment. The trap was perfect. In a desperate final meeting, the Carrick's Overseer contacted the last of the pro-war Zarth leaders. His voice was stripped of pride. "If we do not stop this, there will be no Carrick's dominion left to defend. I will accept their terms." The Zarth admiral refused. Better extinction than kneeling to Deathworlders. That single refusal shattered the already fragile alliance. Carrick's fleets began abandoning joint positions, leaving Zarth forces exposed to human counterattacks. The war was eating itself alive, 20 hours before the weapons' arrival. The humans sent one last message: stand down. Withdraw all forces from occupied systems. Release all prisoners. Return to your home space. You have one cycle to comply. If you do, Voreth will live. If you do not, it will become a sun. The Carrick's overseer didn't wait for debate this time. He broadcast unconditional compliance. To the galaxy, while the Carrick's pulled back, the Zarth doubled down, massing their remaining fleets for a suicidal strike at Sol. They didn't care about Voreth. They didn't care about losing. They wanted vengeance. High Command knew the war wasn't over yet, but now, for the first time, it would be fought on human terms. The Starkiller altered course mid-flight, its engines burning with a cold blue. Light, not toward Voreth anymore, not toward Sol, toward Zorth Prime. The humans didn't say a word. They didn't have to. The Starkiller drifted silently through the void. Spear of light aimed straight at Zarth Prime. Every sensor in the galaxy tracked it. Every government watched in paralyzed silence. And the people of Zarth, they screamed. Zarth High Command issued frantic orders. Orbital defense rings came online. Planetary shields hummed at maximum output. Thousands of warships formed a living wall in space. The Zarth Chancellor appeared on every broadcast, voice trembling but defiant. We will not bow to Deathworlders. Let them come. But the truth was written in the evacuation orders sent in. Secret to the inner colonies. They knew they couldn't stop it, in Sol's underground high command bunker. The human generals stood in a circle around a holographic display. Zarth Prime's image rotated slowly in the air. Admiral Vega's voice was cold. They refused all terms. They struck at our colonies. They slaughtered our civilians. This ends now. But General Harrow leaned forward, his voice lower. Destroy the planet, and we become what they say we are. We've already broken their fleets. We could force their surrender without killing billions. The room split. Half wanted the kill. Half wanted to hold the blade without swinging it. Alien governments sent desperate private messages to Earth. Some offered trade concessions. Others promised military aid if the humans would only spare Zarth Prime. Not one of them spoke out publicly. They feared the Deathworlders too much. Meanwhile, the Zarth fleet, what was left of it, prepared for a suicidal defense. They knew their ships couldn't stop the Starkiller, but they could die trying. Zarth Admiral Joran sent a final encrypted message to his people. If we fall, remember this: it took humanity to bring us down. With 20 minutes to impact, Starkiller's AI pinged High Command for final confirmation. One touch of a button, the weapon would ignite Zarth Prime sunward, sighed into plasma, stripping the atmosphere and ending all life. The war. Room was silent. Even the hum of the equipment seemed to fade. Admiral Vega's hand hovered over the command screen. She looked to the Council. The galaxy will remember this moment for centuries. How do we want them to remember us? At 5 minutes to impact, Earth transmitted a single sentence to Zarth Prime. Surrender your fleets. Stand down your armies and swear never to cross our borders again, or we will fire. For a long, terrible minute, there was no answer. Then the Zarth Chancellor appeared on the feed, the defiance gone from his eyes. We surrender. The Starkiller's engines flared. It arced away from Zarth Prime and into deep space. Vanishing into the black, across the galaxy, fear shifted into something else. Not relief, not really. It was the realization that humanity didn't just have the power to destroy worlds. They had the willpower not to. Weeks later, in a quiet chamber deep beneath Earth's surface, the shadowy figure who had first activated Project Dawn stood before the dormant Starkiller AI. Sleep now, they whispered, but stay ready. Above them, the stars shone cold and bright. And somewhere out there, the galaxy whispered the same phrase, over and over. Never cross Earth.